Hey folks, this is Vince with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to look at Flick Wars, a game for 2 to 4 players for ages 10 and up, with the average playtime being about 15 minutes per player. Now it's important to note that this game will be launching on Kickstarter on or around April 17th. This makes everything that you see here subject to change. Now, Flick Wars is a dexterity-based game. For those of you not familiar with that, dexterity-based games usually challenge players with the use of their hands in some way, sort of like with Jenga or Click Clack Lumberjack, two games that I've covered recently. Now, in this particular game, players are going to be flicking units at each other. Each player will have an army, and they'll be flicking units at each other with the intent on killing off enemy units. And the last player standing will win the game. Sounds pretty simple, but different unit abilities help to mix things up a bit. So let's take a brief moment to look at the components and see how the game is played. Okay, now here's a brief snapshot of the components in question. In the very back is a playmat that came with my prototype copy. I'm told that the playmat will be an add-on in the campaign. Again, it hasn't launched yet, so I don't know in what form it'll be available. Maybe if you pledge so much, you'll get access to it. We'll have to see. But yeah, there is a playmat available as an add-on. You also got this range ruler here. It's similar to the X-Wing and Star Trek miniature games that I play. You'll have range 1, 2, and 3 on here. This is to help measure whether or not someone is in range of an attack. You've got these nice little reference cards here to help players keep track of what they can do on their turn. And as you can see, there are a lot of different colorful cards and discs here. These cards are unit cards, and basically players will be able to purchase these unit cards in order to place the corresponding disc onto the playmat. Now, these larger discs here are your bases of sorts. They can't be moved around or killed or anything like that, at least voluntarily, but they'll serve as a base of sorts so that they can spawn these smaller discs. And as you can see, there are 4 different colors representing the 4 different factions in the game. Over here on the right, you have Unium, at least I think that's how you pronounce it. This is your currency. Each player will receive so much at the beginning of the game. These small ones are 1, and these larger ones are 5. Finally, you have this large disc here. I don't know what it's for. My guess is that it's an obstacle of sorts. It's not part of any faction as far as I can tell, but you can place obstacles onto the playmat to sort of mix up your game, and I'll show you that in a minute. Now, there are a few different ways you can set up this game, and that's based on how many people are playing the game and whether or not you decide to use the basic or advanced rule set. To keep things simple in this video, I'll go ahead and just do a 2-player game using the basic rule set, though if I have time, I'll go ahead and cover the advanced rule set at the end of the video. Now, what players will do, and I'm going to use red and blue as examples. The first thing they'll do is determine who goes first by way of a skill shot. To do that, each player will pick a disc, and they'll go ahead and flick it toward the other edge of the table. The closest without going over will get to go first. The next things players will do is sort of in their heads pick their territory. Basically, they're going to cut the board in half, and half is going to go to one player, and half is going to go to the other player. So we'll make, let's say, red over here and blue over here. Now, what they'll do is they'll go ahead and sort of place their base or spawn it somewhere within 3 range of the edge of the table. Something like this. Again, you can use the range ruler to determine the distance, and the same thing over here for blue. Now after that, players can go ahead and transform the terrain however they want. All they'll really do is they can pick some household objects, or whatever the case may be, and sort of just put them on top of the playmat to help block shots or make players work around them. Alternatively, players can go ahead and just say add objects underneath the playmat to sort of simulate a hill. Again, players are free to do whatever they want with regard to this. They can even just get rid of all of the terrain features altogether and just work with a standard mat. Now, once the terrain is set up however players want, each player will get 30 Unium. Again, the larger chips are worth 5, and the smaller ones are worth 1. Once each player has that 30 unium, they'll go through their unit cards and pick out the ones that say advanced, just putting them back into the box. If they were utilizing the advanced rule set, they would keep the advanced cards. Just to give you a quick look at what these cards look like, you've got the title of the card along the top here, its stats, you've got cost, number of flicks it can take, and range, and you've got either the word basic or advanced listed here. And if the card has any sort of special ability, it's listed along the bottom. And different cards have different abilities, so you'll want to pay attention to that. And each faction is a bit different. For example, the Heavy Trooper is not found in the blue deck, and it has the melee and quickfire. So you'll have to take a look not only at the individual units in question, but you'll want to take a look at the different factions to see what they have to offer. Now, once players have sorted out the cards, again, the advanced ones go back in the box for the basic game, and the basic cards are just placed near their respective players. But once the cards are all sorted out, each player will choose 2 to buy using the unium that they have. And again, each card has a cost associated with it. You can see it in here in blue. If this red player were to purchase one of these Heavy Troopers, they'd have to pay 5 unium to the bank. Once players have chosen 2 to purchase, they're going to keep this knowledge hidden from the other players until the last minute. But once everyone has chosen 2, what they'll do is they'll flip their units face up and reveal them all at the same time. And then they'll go ahead and place them within range 1 of their base. So let's just say that, let's say red liked the Heavy Trooper and did a heavy mech. Range 1. And blue would do the same thing with his 2 units. Gunship, let's do that. And fighter, maybe. There we go. Range 1. And then, of course, players would have to pay that cost from their little unium stash here to the bank. Now that, for the most part, concludes game setup. Again, this may vary slightly depending on how many people are playing and whether or not you're using the advanced rule set. Now, on a player's turn, they can do one of 2 things. They can activate 1 unit or take 2 reposition actions. Now, if a player decides to activate a unit on their turn, they'll have to first figure out how many flicks are available to them on that turn. And that's where these unit cards come into play. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that the blue player wanted to activate their fighter. And yellow is the number of flicks available to them for that turn, and the special ability says plus 2 flicks if this unit starts within range 2 of a friendly unit or base. So 1 flick plus 2 bonus flicks is 3. So that fighter would get 3 flicks for this round. Now, with that said, a player can either move and or attack, but the player will have to announce his intention before doing so. When it comes to moving, you can move as many times as you want up to your flick limit for that turn, but if you attack, on the other hand, you'll have to end your turn right after that. So you want to make sure that your piece is in a good position before you commit to an attack. Okay, and just to sort of simulate the turn, let's just say that the blue player decides to make use of his 3 flicks by moving twice and then attacking for his 3rd and final flick. So let's just say that the blue player went ahead and flicked his piece. Let's just say he landed here, and let's say he moved here for his 2nd flick, and then finally he went to attack, and he ended up hitting this red unit here. Now, what happens whenever a hit like that occurs? The defending player is flipped face down to determine or to represent that they're dead. Dead units stay on the battlefield unless they're flicked off the table and serve as obstacles. So the more that the body count ramps up, so to speak, the more obstacles that'll be on the mat at any given time. So yeah, that'll end blue's turn, and then red would be able to take his turn. Alright, now I mentioned earlier that a player can do one of 2 things on their turn. They can activate 1 unit, which is what blue did, or they can take 2 reposition actions. A player that decides to do this, and we'll do this for red just to sort of serve as an example, but a player that does this can do up to 2 things. They can do a move flick with one of their units, that'll be 1 reposition action, or they can buy and deploy a unit, that is also a reposition action. Moving a unit with a reposition action is the same as if you were moving it when you were activating a unit. You just simply flick it to some other place on the field. If it touches an enemy unit, it does not kill them. The advantage of using a move unit, using a reposition action, allows you to use or move more than one friendly piece at a time. Now, the buy and deploy a unit is the same as if you were setting up the game. You would just simply look at your available cards, pick one that you want to buy, look at its cost, pay that much to the bank, and then place that within range 1 of your base. Now, it's worth quickly noting that you can take extra reposition actions by paying 1 unium to the bank. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Players will continue taking turns back and forth, trying to kill off their opponent's units while trying to keep a steady supply of units coming by buying and deploying them. And the player that loses all of their units, if they're all flipped over dead, they are eliminated from the game. The player left standing, obviously, is the winner. Now, I mentioned earlier that there was an advanced rule set, and I'm not going to go over all of that here, but I will just briefly sum it up for you. There is a little icon underneath each picture here, and what players will do is they'll sort out their unit cards into separate piles with these particular units. So it looks like there's a little well, either an airplane or a dragon or something there. That'll go on one pile. You've got a little tank here that'll go on another pile. You've got a pistol here that'll go on another pile. And you'll just keep making these piles like so. And when you buy units at the beginning of the game, and as you buy and deploy units throughout the game, you can only have one unit type on the field at a time. So you can't have 2 units that share these gun icons on the table at the same time. You'll have to have either a gun, and then one of these tanks, and then maybe one of these airplanes here. Some other things to note about the advanced game. One thing that you can do at the beginning of the game is you can secretly choose an extra unit on top of the 2 that you'd normally buy. Another thing that you can do, you can start with 50 unium instead of 30. The manual suggests 50, but feel free to be creative. And finally, there is a new reposition action called switch and deploy. It actually costs 2 reposition actions to perform. And what that means is you can go through one pile here, pick the one that you want, place it on top, and that's the one that you'll have to immediately buy and deploy. So if there's a particular unit that you really need at that time, you can do a switch and deploy to hurry up and deploy it onto the battlefield. And there you have it. That's just a very brief look at the game Flick Wars. I didn't cover all of the rules found in the manual, but this should just give you a general idea as far as how the game is played. Once again, you can be on the lookout for this game on Kickstarter. It should be launching on or around April 17th. So if you like what you see here, feel free to go check it out and support it. You can check out my written preview at www.dadsgamingaddiction.com, where you can click on the links in the below description. That'll take you there as well. This is Vince. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.